but it all worked well. I think the background from verbal and quant courses, which I
Mm-hmm.
carried into the DI course, which I started at a later point of time, a lot of verbal understanding helped me solve
Mm-hmm.
the verbal related DI questions better and in a
Mm-hmm.
more efficient manner. For GMAT, it is essential that you remain in touch. Just the weekends won't yield you that kind of result. So the only thing which is important is to be consistent, even if it is for a smaller amount of time during the weekdays, and then maybe a longer session on the weekends. It will definitely help a lot. It definitely helped me a lot. I had in my somewhat 2.5 months of journey, I had 2 or 3 instances where I, out of work requirements, I could not study for almost 3-4 days at a stretch, and I really felt that when I came back after the fourth or fifth day, it took me some time to go back to that kind of flow of consistency. I was of the view that note taking in verbal is something which will consume a lot of time. But it also mentioned that it will get wired into your thought process and you will not require that. So I, for once, I agreed to do what it recommended, and that it really worked. So maybe after my second mock or so, I stopped requiring to take those notes, and it really started getting built in my mind.
Hi, Sahaj. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for coming here. And a big, big, big congratulations on a brilliant 725 with a V86 and a D87, right? So a brilliant, brilliant score. Heartiest congratulations. How does it feel to be here?
Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you so much. So I think first of all, thanks a lot to you and entire eGMAT team, because being the backbone of my preparation cycle. So definitely all kudos to you. It feels, as I told, it feels really satisfying after a good 2.5 months long determination to one target, one goal, and when that target score gets achieved, that screen appearing after that exam is really relieving. I'm sure whoever goes through this journey will be able to relate at the end.
Yes, yes. I think, you know, the entire preparation boiling down to that particular day and that particular screen wherein you see the score is is
Correct.
I think surreal when you see such a score. And kudos to you. I know that you had a very, very busy work life, given the sector that you work in, be to have been able to balance both your prep and the busy work life must not have been easy, but really, really great that you were able to do that. And we'll talk about how you managed to do that in a bit. But Sahaj, you started out, this is your first attempt, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yes, and you started by taking a couple of mocks, wherein it was not that you were starting out at lower ability. Your starting scores were a 645, 675
Yeah.
kind of a range, right? Uh, but given that you did do an extensive preparation, you started by creating your study plan and doing an extensive preparation. So, given those mock scores, what were your major challenges that you thought you faced, and what was the reason for that extensive prep that you did?
Yeah. So, like any competitive exam, what I always felt and what I always feel is that it does not matter if you start at the 85th percentile, it is all about the efforts which require you to take it up to the 98th or 99th percentile. And
Mm-hmm.
that is where, reaching matters. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe, starting with a 555 and then going up to 645 won't take that amount of an effort. So that is what I also knew when I started. I was of the view that there is some amount of preparation it is going to be required to reach that 725 or 735. So that is one thing which was in mind, to have a structured approach, because having attempted many competitive exams prior to this
Mm-hmm.
also, it was something which was required. But the challenge this time was to manage it with the work life, because it was not that I was having a full time
Mm-hmm.
to only studies. So my
Mm-hmm.
primary intention of going through this course and opting for a structured approach was to have a mechanism in place where there is something which I can look forward to, and then not spend time on looking for resources or trying
Mm-hmm.
to figure out what to do. That way.
Got it.
So that
Got
is
it.
where the PSP also helps a lot, because it gives you a device goal
Yes.
as well.
Yes, and so I thought this would be a good time for us to look at your PSP, and this was what you created when you came on board. And here, for our viewers, I just want to show that your target score was a 725. You reached that 725, so really, really great. And what we can see from here also is that you are starting out at a relatively better level when it comes to quants. Quants was already strong, but verbal and data insights is where, a lot of focus was when it came to the preparation, right? So tell me, Sahaj, when it comes to, I know that DI has been a phenomenal improvement, a 7 point improvement from an 87, 80 to an 87, and we will talk about it. But during our discussions, we also know that one of the primary reasons for that kind of improvement in data insights was also the improvement in verbal, right?
Right.
So we started with verbal. So can you tell us what were your major challenges in verbal, when it comes to critical reasoning or reading comprehension?
So coming to verbal, I see I come from the most represented background, that is the engineer
Mm-hmm,
segment, and then quant is something we are overconfident. I'll not shy away from accepting that.
mm-hmm,
But verbal is something which is the challenge in particularly for GMAT. And
mm-hmm,
that being said, verbal from the perspective of how GMAT wants to test your skills is something which really needs a
mm-hmm,
thorough preparation, which is not
mm-hmm,
doable without that. So essentially, the thought-provoking questions, or the the way, the strategy which is required to approach those questions in a timely manner, not deteriorating your accuracy, and same
mm-hmm,
time matching the time requirements. So that was a
mm-hmm,
challenge, but the course was I must appreciate the well-structured course, which helped me gain those particular skills and particular techniques, I would say, to avoid
mm-hmm,
those traps and to
mm-hmm.
essentially extract what information is required from the question, and then arrive at the right answer. So
Got
most
it.
people will second my opinion that it all boils down to two choices, and then that is the hardest choice you have to make in a verbal question. But
Mm-hmm.
those techniques, if you take them as a Bible, it definitely helps, is what I can say.
Okay, that's very nice to know. And we were also discussing, when it comes to critical reasoning, there was always this challenge of being stuck with two answer choices, right?
Yeah,
And you were saying that pre-thinking really helped you,
right.
overcome that, and so answer choice became very, very clinical, and you were able to zero in on the correct answer choice. So tell us, how did pre-thinking help, and was it easy initially to adopt that process?
So I remember when I started my preparation, one of the courses, it mentioned that it recommended note taking, and I was of the view that note taking in verbal is something which will consume a lot of time. But
Mm-hmm,
they also mentioned that it will get wired into your thought process, and you'll not require that.
mm-hmm,
So for once, I agreed to do what it recommended, and that it really worked. So
mm-hmm,
maybe after my second mock or so, I stopped requiring to take those
mm-hmm,
notes, and it really started getting built in my mind. So for my actual attempt, I frankly did not take any notes for verbal,
mm-hmm,
but then the
mm-hmm,
things started getting registered. So
mm-hmm,
I would say that, yeah, those kind of things which the strategies which were taught, and not just the final exam strategy, but the preparation strategy
mm-hmm,
was very much in line with the how the thought process works. So that really helped me. Critical reasoning, especially the techniques which you mentioned, the pre-thinking, or be it the assumption type of questions, where the ABC test and
mm-hmm,
falsification scenario test. Those tests help me a lot in eliminating the last two answer choices, and then arriving at the right answer.
mm-hmm,
That was it. But yeah, the way it was taught is more important, I feel, because
mm-hmm,
techniques are something which are common to everyone. But the way it was
mm-hmm.
taught, and in the way it was presented to me, it made a difference.
Yeah, I think you put in a whole lot of effort also, because, as they say, the product, the course is as good as the user. And here's where I want to show the effort that went into building that, the processes to an extent wherein it became second nature to you. What we see here are stellar grades, and that resulting in brilliant, brilliant scores when it comes to cementing. And, that's the thing. You invest in building a rock solid foundation, it pays dividends in terms of grade stats, and then directly leads to a great score. And this is what is the proof of that. Coming to reading comprehension, Sahaj, you mentioned that while you were starting out at a relatively better space there. You had certain challenges when it came to certain kind of passages, right?
Correct.
So how did the course help you overcome that? And yeah, let's first talk about that. Then I have another question that I want to ask you.
So RC, I think Master Comprehension did the master for me. It really helped me in terms of certain. So RC is coming from a particular domain of say biology or say medieval
Mm-hmm.
era kind of questions. Those questions were really taking my thought process into understanding the subject rather than
Mm-hmm.
trying to answer the question. But
Mm-hmm.
the comprehension course really helped me identify the structure of the passage and then go to the question, analyze what the
Mm-hmm.
question requires, and then pinpoint what is the relevant part and give the
Mm-hmm.
answer. So
Got it.
without, essentially requiring an understanding of the passage, but attempting the question with accuracy is something
Got
which,
it.
helped me. And then a lot of, in terms of verbal, a lot of times it happens that you tend to apply your additional knowledge or you tend to,
Mm-hmm.
forget your common knowledge or the, the general
Mm-hmm.
assumptions which are required. So that is a very thin line. But then only what you rightly said, the scholarinium gives a ample amount of practice, and then
Mm-hmm.
once you start going through those questions again and again, you started identifying that thin line. That is
Got
also
it.
what helps a
Got
lot.
it. So the question that I wanted to ask you is because a lot of us have this conception that, we are weak with certain kind of passages. Is that true? Or if you just stick to the process that you learned, you just stick to reading strategies, it is something that, you should be able to get a good accuracy across the passages.
Yeah, so I can totally relate because, like I told, that was what I believed until I
Mm-hmm.
started this course. But see, my only point would be that even if you're weak at some kind of passage, GMAT won't spare you with, not giving that kind of passage to you on your
Mm-hmm.
exam day. So you have to be prepared for it. And one RC wrong can take your score from a,
Yes.
a very, very heavy
Mm-hmm.
gap. So my only, belief after going through this course is that if you stick to the strategies well, and if
Mm-hmm.
you try to follow those techniques, it can, no background of passage can stop you
Mm-hmm.
from solving the question.
Yeah. So if you have the right kind of tools, you should be able to
Yes,
tackle any kind
yes,
of
yes,
RC, right? Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Because it's I think more of the mindset wherein if you think you're not good with humanities, you sort of bring that baggage on board when you're reading. Moving on to data insights, phenomenal improvement. 87 is the 99th percentile. So here, uh, what was your biggest challenge in data insights?
So speed, I think, was one of the major challenge for me when I started off in my first mock. I think I ended up, guess marking the last two questions,
Mm-hmm.
and I was not able to complete through the 20 questions at all.
Mm-hmm.
And in my preparation, one of the initial sessions also, data insights was something I was particularly concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
But it all worked well. I think the background from verbal and quant courses, which I
Mm-hmm.
carried into the DI course, which I started at a later point of time, a lot of verbal understanding helped me solve
Mm-hmm.
the verbal related DI questions better and in a more
Mm-hmm.
efficient manner. So that helped me a lot. And then many tricks and techniques which were taught for, especially for JITA questions and then MSR questions, it helped me save a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
One
Mm-hmm.
more
Mm-hmm.
important thing which I did not used to follow before starting off is, like I told, engineers are always, overconfident at quant. So they feel that the calculator is not, required for us. But that is something because GMAT has given it with a purpose. So that is something which I learned from the course, that wherever
Mm-hmm.
required, you should use that calculator. So
Yes,
that helped me. That again helped me in one or two questions.
that's great. So what I hear you tell is, the foundational skills that were needed, you anyways got from verbal and quant to some extent, but the specific skills that would have helped you solve the question in a timely manner is something that you picked up from the course.
Right.
Right? Okay. So also, I think that helped you great deal in time management because now you had those specific approaches that helped you solve question in way
Yeah.
less time. And you mentioned you had almost what 7 minutes to spare in your data insight section.
Correct. So
Okay.
my final attempt I completed at the 38th or 39th minute, and then I had good 6 7 minutes to go back and review some of my questions. Contrary to what I used to be 4 to 5 minutes short of attempting the last
Mm-hmm.
questions.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a major help, which
Got it.
like,
So I have one question here. When you say that you ended up saving so much time on your final attempt, and also, of course, the accuracy was great. You got a 87. Now I know that when it comes to your DI prep or verbal prep, for that matter, it involved two stages. One stage was building that foundation by going through the course, learning the concepts, learning the application, and then practice, right? It was not just practice solely. So, how useful was this kind of a structured approach? Do you think you would have been here by just plainly practicing without the right kind of foundation, or vice versa?
no, so why I like the direct practice would definitely not help, because GMAT is not about just concepts and the core concepts and application, but it is more
Mm-hmm.
about understanding the process and understanding how to attempt the question in the best possible manner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So that is where the course helps a lot, especially in case of verbal, where quant, maybe if you are through with the concepts, maybe you can start off with a practice where you go into the questions and then come back to your weaker topics.
Mm-hmm.
But especially for that's what I'm talking about my case. But in case of verbal, going through the course first definitely gave me some, insights about what techniques to use, what process to follow. And then the, practice, the initial practice sessions on the Scholarinium and then the mock tests, it kind of builds your, so it's a muscle you build. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is the right
That's
word to use.
that's beautifully said.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one another important aspect of building this muscle were the sectional mocks that you took on the
Right.
platform,
Right.
right? And these are new. This is a new feature, new product that we've launched. So, what's your take on the sectional mocks, and how helpful were they in your prep?
So I think I must appreciate the entire Scholarinium platform as a whole. See,
Mm-hmm.
because I have struggled in my initial 15 days to find relevant material and find relevant questions for GMAT, especially GMAT Focus Edition, and it
Mm-hmm.
is a scarcity, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And then such high quality material at a single, under single umbrella is difficult
Mm-hmm.
to find. So hats off to the team for curating such a content. And definitely it helps because that is it is a very close replica of the actual
Mm-hmm.
process. So the sectional mock, when you take it, actually works on that kind of if not the same algorithm, but a similar kind of algorithm, which helps you simulate the environment.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
helps a lot. And then verbal is all about, like I told, it will, that process will slowly get wired in your brain. So that continuous practice, and then the more amount of practice, it
Mm-hmm.
helps for sure.
Okay, that's really good to know. Now coming to the D-Day, Sahaj, you did the course brilliantly well. Your mocks were going all good. So I'm sure you were confident on the test day, but as we were discussing, what really brings everything together is to be your 100% on the test day. And I'm sure you were anxious like all the other GMAT test takers out there, right? Because it is a high stakes test.
Mhm.
So how did you manage your nerves on the D-Day? Because I know that with Quant, which was the strongest area for you, did not go as planned, but you
Yeah.
still held on and you were, you know, manage your performance and get a brilliant score. So do you want to quickly run us through that?
Yeah, so I think the last couple of days before the exam do play a crucial role. At least they did in my case. So try to be, as close in the last 2 3 days to studies as much as you can
Mm-hmm.
be. Try to be that, and try to focus your attention over there. What personally I strategized was, last 4 days I took a mock test at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
If it works or if it does not work, but it did work for me because
Mm-hmm.
it kind of sets your bio clock that way.
Mm-hmm.
And regarding the test day, definitely it is it is all about controlling those nerves. But one thing which I can say is what eGMAT in one of the introductory sessions I heard was
Mm-hmm.
that it is all about having no surprises on the last day. So
Mm-hmm.
it is definitely, something, a small surprise can also, take you off track. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely keep going through those mocks as they are, so that you don't
Mm-hmm.
have anything which is not known to you beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So that will help a lot. And just my strategy was to take it as a seventh mock.
Mm-hmm.
That is all I,
Okay.
that is all
Mm-hmm.
I kept in my mind, because at the end it is one day, and if at all your brain is not 100% free of any kind of
Mm-hmm.
stress, I would say it is difficult to show your performance. That being said, I know, at back of your mind you always have that kind of a feeling that
Mm-hmm.
it is something which is going to have a stake, but then trying to give your 100% on that day is the most essential thing you should do. So
Yes.
that worked well for me. I took it as a mock test, and then I went into the exam that way.
Mm-hmm.
I just followed the same sequence. In all my mocks also I followed a verbal quant DI kind of a sequence, and I took a break after my quant section. So verbal, when I attempted, frankly, verbal, when it ends, you never know how it went, but it is just a
Mm-hmm.
confidence which you have. Quant was something which I was most confident about because I was scoring consistently good. But
Mm-hmm.
frankly, the quant section didn't went well for me, and that is, it is reflecting in my scores also. But and then the break came in. So during that break, I was definitely not so confident about my score. But those 10 minutes, I just tried to re-strategize myself, just to like I kept on seeing myself that is just a mock, and then if nothing goes well, we'll see what happens. But the entire strategy was to do my best for my DI section. Then going into DI, I could regather myself, and I could do a good attempt.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, I could,
Yeah.
the high DI score helped me a lot to achieve my target.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it is, don't depend on any of your section, is what I would say, because it is equally important to be on. So
Mm-hmm.
someone with a Q90 and V88 can say that I'll ignore the D and go into the test is not something I would recommend. Be confident about equally about all three of your sections, so that you can bank up on some another
Yeah.
plan B in case your plan A does not work
Yeah.
fine.
And it's a very interdependent test, right?
Yeah.
So, and regather is the right word you used, you know. Okay, this is gone, but that is not the end of it all. I still have one more section wherein, you know, I can perform well and then get to that dream score, which is, you know, as I said, day one, you decided you will get a 725, and on the test day you get there, which is a brilliant, brilliant thing. Now, initially we were discussing during the start of this call that, you know, it was difficult for you to, you have a busy career and you managed your prep and busy work life together. So any pointers that you can share with other people out there who are hustling in their professional life and still trying to ace the GMAT?
So one thing I had in mind when I started my prep was that leaving the work and focusing 100% on studies would not be a prudent thing to do, because that is
Mm-hmm.
something which has to be managed together, and this is just one part of the preparation phase. So you cannot afford to forego your entire work life. That is one thing. Second,
Okay.
those who are into field jobs, or who are physically going to office, not working remotely, have a lot of issues in terms of managing time for studies every day.
Mm-hmm.
For GMAT, it is essential that you remain in touch. Just the weekends won't yield you that kind
Yeah.
of result. So the only thing which is important is to be consistent, even if it is for a smaller amount of time during the weekdays, and then maybe a
Mm-hmm.
longer session on the weekends. It will definitely help a lot. It definitely helped me a lot. I had two in my 2 and 2, somewhat 2.5 month of journey. I had 2 or 3 instances where I, out of work requirements, I could not study for almost 3 4 days at a stretch, and I really felt that when I came back after the fourth or fifth day, it took me some time to go back to that kind of
Mm-hmm.
flow
Mm-hmm.
or consistency.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely gives you a break. But that being said, GMAT is something which is really, really manageable with your work. I don't feel that, this is something which will not be possible with the work life.
Mm-hmm.
It is all about taking out some time, definitely some, some sacrifices on your, leisure time, or I would say
Mm-hmm.
even that is manageable in most of the cases. But yeah, some focus would be required. And consistency is the key again, I would say, because even if you spend half an hour every day, it is something which keeps you in touch with the course. And then so have your strategy in place, have your plan in place, so that when you come back home, you have a definitive topic or definitive set of questions to
Mm-hmm.
attend, so that it does
Mm-hmm.
not take you time to identify what to do.
Got it.
That's
Yeah. So I think having a plan is in place also is
yeah.
super helpful, right? Because as you said, You come back home after a hectic days of work. You should not be thinking, what do I do now?
Right.
Having that set stuff that you need to do on that particular day becomes super helpful. And yes, kudos to you on having managed that. It was a field job, as you said, a lot of traveling. So it's not just mentally draining, it's physically exhausting also.
Yeah.
So I would say if you can do it, a whole lot of us can do it too, right? Uh, Sahaj, any parting thoughts? It's been quite a journey from day one to where we are now. So any specific parting thoughts that you
So I
have?
think first of all, I'll wish the best of luck to all the people out there who are either in this journey or starting this journey. And it is going to be a beautiful time, I must say. You may miss out on many things. You may feel you miss out on many things, but at the end, the like I said in the beginning, the screen which appears after your test, and
Mm-hmm,
if you achieve that is what you are planning for, it is a different feeling altogether. And I'm sure
mm-hmm,
most of us have been through many competitive exams. We know how it feels. But that being said, GMAT is a definitely in terms of it is a higher stake test, and you cannot afford to go again and again. So that is something. Be prepared for your day. Don't try to keep your nerves well, and then just give it as a mock, and I'm sure it will do well. Regarding the preparation, definitely have a structured approach. Try to be as consistent as possible in terms of daily and weekly preparation cycles. Try to give as many mocks as possible, and question solving is the key. So like it is a muscle which you build, so you have to be consistent, and you have to keep on increasing the bar. That is when you reach that score. So that is there. And lastly, yes, definitely, I thanks a lot to the team for being there throughout, and being there with such a wonderful platform out there. It really helped me achieve my score, and I feel that every one of us should mark that PSP right well. 725 is something which I fed in there, and I could achieve that. So maybe I feel I should have fed 745 there, and he would have taken me to 745 as well.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Well, we're so glad to have been a part of this beautiful, wonderful
Yeah.
journey. And we wish you all the very best for the upcoming application cycle,
Thank
interview cycle. So, uh, yes, hope to see you
thank you. Thank you so
in the
much.
dream school of your choice.
Definitely,
All the
definitely.
best.
Right. Thank you so much.